Welcome in, everyone, to Flyover Footy. My name is Matt Baker, joined as always by my friend in soccer, Stuart Hultgren, for a Happy New Year edition of Flyover Footy. Plenty to talk about, right, Stu? Lots of news to break, lots of news to get into on incomings, outgoings, roster turnover since our last show. It's a brand new dawn, right? It's a new dawn rising. Isn't that what it's supposed to be?
Yeah, exactly. We have rising with so many incomings that we've had so far this 2026. I just can't keep up with everything happening. Actually, no, I thought we were going to do 2 hours of Yeti talk tonight.
You know, we might do that. I forgot. We actually still need to do the math at the end of the show. So if you stick around to the very end, we'll do math for you. We'll take your questions on how many games you're going to actually be attending this year, and we'll tell you if it makes sense for you to get the Yeti or not.
Hey,
sounds fun.
Way to save money. Flyover Footy.
Tune into Flyover Footy for all your financial needs at St. Louis City Games. No, fantastic to see so many people here. Stu and I were talking right before we went live because we saw the chat start to fill up a little bit. And again, if you don't remember, we're using some new software here. We're trying to figure out how people are chatting with us before we go live. And I think I have it figured out. I think I saw what happened. So maybe I'll use that to our advantage later on. I don't know. But we thank you for joining us live. We thank you for joining us on YouTube. If you're watching this later, that's the only place you're going to hear this portion of the pod for sure. We have not started the pod recording. So hop on in, join the conversation. Let us know what you're thinking. Besides Yeti talk, besides Inter Miami, besides the kit, because we don't have any news on it. Actually, we've got speculation on the kit. Stu, do you have any speculation on the kit?
I mean, I guess would be all the promos seem to lean hard into the yellow accents. Or are you talking about the Reddit post that we saw last week where the guy was saying that he saw Matt Seebeck in Union Bagels, and he was apparently causing a little leak, according to the Reddit post.
Shout out to Union Bagels. And this part is definitely not making it on the podcast audio version. This is a video exclusive here. If you didn't catch the Reddit post, there was apparently a Matt Seebeck sighting at Union Bagel that everybody who's on Reddit knows about, apparently showing what somebody saw or perceived to be the new away kit, or the new away kit, which has yellow tones apparently, which could coincide with the new dawn rising #STL rising motif. Yet to be determined, but yellow is hot on the tongues of a lot of people who are speculating about the kit, which will be exciting. I mean, we've gotten a gray. It was a very first kit, so we've got the arch steel or whatever it is. We've had city red. We have not had a full blown river blue for the first team, but this could be energy yellow year, right?
Yeah, I mean, it seems that way. The way that they're teasing these the social media posts that the admin's putting out, creative team definitely seems to be leaning into something having to do with energy yellow, which I think would be great, as long as we don't end up with Nashville SC St. Louis version.
Ooh, yeah, no, it's got to be a different yellow than that. Plus, it's got to be different enough and light enough, I guess, that the kit has a different tone from the city red. City red being the home kit, it's a darker version. It has to be some kind of lighter kit. I think Nashville, when they have their full-blown highlighter kit, they still had their blue kit, right?
Yeah, they did.
So it could be close to that, I guess, since that was their light version.
Yeah, it would be interesting. One, if you want to get a early look at maybe the format of what our kit might look like, just go to Adidas and peer at all sorts of their kits that they have, their templates, and I mean, it's probably a good chance that it's going to match, or at least quite a few elements will match with something that's out there right now. Like the current home kit is very similar to a lot of elements with Fulham's kit, actually. So notice that after it came out with the half collar.
Yep, definitely noticed the half collar on Fulham. We could probably go the rest of the time talking kit. We do have some things to talk about city-wise. There is one piece of, I think this might be breaking news that we realized right before we went on the air. So I'll tease that we have one semi-breaking news for you about halfway through the show when we get to the city talk. But setting the stage for you, we've got some coaching talk. I wasn't joking on social media when I mentioned that we have some assistant coaching talk. We do have a little bit to look around the league. There's been a lot moving outside of the city realm. A lot of teams have been making moves. The degree of impact of those moves is debatable. But there are some teams that definitely will look vastly different in 2026 than they did 2025. As it stands right now, St. Louis is going to look borderline the exact same. It's not going to hold. Like, obviously, we're going to have signings. But there definitely have been some teams going up and going down that we're going to cover. And then, the bulk of the show will be hitting on St. Louis City. So toss your questions in the chat. We will get to them. We will talk about the roster club profile. We have some depth chart talk. And then there may be a little bit of a tease here at the end of the show. So stick around to the end if you want a little bit of a Flyover Footy tease. It's going to be a fun night. So, Stu, you ready to do this podcast recording?
Oh, absolutely.
And in typical preseason manner, Instagram did not want to work for us. So apologies if you have friends who tune into us on Instagram. That does not appear to be working at all. We're in preseason form. What can you do? All right, let's get going with the pod recording.
All right, let's go. Are you enjoying the? Well, we'll start with the banter after we start. But
preseason Stu is still recovering from his illness. Mine was like 3 weeks ago. Stu's still recovering from his.
Yeah, Daytona COVID.
All right. Welcome everyone to Flyover Footy on the Big 550 KTRS. My name is Matt Baker. Thank you so much for joining us on the first Flyover Footy of the 2026 calendar year. It is a season kickoff show, a new dawn rising, but no player signings yet. Joining me for this first show of the year is Stuart Hultgren, my good friend in soccer. Stu, how you doing on this early January still before preseason training camp opens?
I'm doing pretty good. The new leak in my basement has actually just stopped, and I think the rain has stopped. So that's a big plus. I'll take the win right now.
It has been pouring rain here in various parts of the city and county as we record this on Thursday. So hopefully that's all cleared up and everybody has a nice weather, nice climate when you're listening to this. We've got a pretty good show for you tonight. We have some slight news. We've got reports from the break of some coaching staff updates for how Yohan Demay is building out his staff. We're going to take a look around the league because there have been a lot of movements throughout MLS. Some of the teams have been bulking up their rosters and their prospects for 2026, while some teams have been getting picked apart both from the player perspective and the coaching staff perspective. We're going to dive into a lot of that and talk to you about some of our key moves to watch and key teams to watch based on how their rosters are building out. And then, we will focus heavily on this episode on St. Louis City, despite the fact that, spoiler alert, as of this recording, there have been 0 incoming roster moves made for St. Louis City. No new players have been signed since our last episode. And again, we are recording this on Thursday. So if you're listening to us on Friday, it's possible that you have better news. If you're listening to us on Saturday, also possible. Get this out of the way. Camp opens for St. Louis City on January 10th. On Saturday, players report. They'll have their medicals done. And then about Monday or so, they'll actually start training in full. So we are leading you up to the kickoff of training camp opening. That's our goal here, to level set everything about what St. Louis City has in store to start preseason. Get you ready for the next wave of news, because the next wave of news is coming. I can promise you that. Stu, let's start off with the assistant coaching staff rumors as Yohan Demay continues to fill out his staff. We have 2 rumored reports of folks that are joining Yohan Demay's staff. One of them is David Sauvry. Most recently, David Sauvry was in the top flight of Belgium as an assistant. He served with Yohan Demay at Galaxy 2 in 2022 when Yohan Demay was the head coach, and then Demay moved to an assistant coach in that organization that year and the next. And also the interesting thing about David Sauvry is that he served as an assistant in Montreal while Corey Ray was there. So you've got, again, familiarity with the coach, familiarity with the sporting director of David Sauvry. And the other rumored reporting assistant coaching staff signing is Marcelo Sarvas. Marcelo Sarvas also served with Yohan Demay on the Galaxy 2 coaching staff in 2022. Stu, what do you make of the fact that both of the coaches that are reportedly joining Demay, who it's his first year coaching too, so he has to start from scratch, essentially building out who his staff will be that he brings with him. As we know, lots of coaches, most every coach brings with them at least one assistant coach that they've worked with in the past. Yoann Demay drawing heavily from his time with Galaxy 2, as opposed to those that he might have worked alongside at Columbus or elsewhere. What do you make of the fact that we're now taking the 2022 Galaxy 2 coaching staff and transitioning it to 2026 St. Louis City?
I have no problem whatsoever with that. I think he's going to draw off of people he knows, connections he knows. And Savary and Sarvas, they're young coaches as well as Demay is, obviously. So they're hopefully going to bring some of that energy in. Savary leaving Belgium is kind of interesting because the season's ongoing, but they're bottom of the table, FCV Dender. I'm intrigued. I saw Montreal supporters a little upset when Savary left, but I think their knee-jerk reaction is whatever decisions their front office makes, it's going to be the wrong one. So, time will tell. We'll see. Who knows what fingerprints they'll bring and what changes they'll make.
That's the big thing to me, is that the takeaway for me on this is Yoann Demay's bringing folks that he knows can implement what he wants to do. It's not so much about the expertise that somebody has working alongside you. As a head coach, you need to be able to trust your assistants to implement what you want, the vision, the style of play, the tactics, and actually instill that into the players. And so it makes sense for me, assuming that Demay had a successful venture and enjoyed his time with Galaxy 2, that he brings those that he's familiar with to be able to do that. The working alongside of him as an assistant in Columbus, you don't expect you to bring colleagues with you to work under you. You expect to, as long as their careers make sense for it, bring those that you've worked with who have done exactly what you're going to ask them to do. That's not even saying that we're going to be playing the same style of play that the Galaxy 2 played in 2022. It's just saying that Demay trusts these folks and he has experience with them. And I think that in and of itself is a good sign for St. Louis, that Demay is bringing with him two folks who he knows he can rely on, he has familiarity with, and that will help, I think, instill what he wants to do better with the players, that he has this trust and this repertoire already built with these guys. So that excites me about this move. And I think that's the one takeaway I have more than anything about this. Also, the fact that we may be keeping around Elvier and some of the other guys on the coaching staff who have transitioned from a Bradley Carnell to a Hackworth to a Melberg to a Critchley. I don't know if I would expect the entire staff to turn over unless that Corey Ray and Yoann Demay actually work that out. That might be part of this analysis and this process. I haven't seen anything on that, but the coaching staff will be pretty apparent here in the next couple of weeks when we get some video and eyes on training whenever we can. Stu, the one name though in the assistant coaching conversation and the one name really nobody's heard of in a while is David Critchley. Any speculation that you have based on the lack of information that we have on David Critchley, because we haven't heard a peep since I think Corey Ray had discussed him on a KMOV interview 2 or 3 weeks ago, about still being in conversations and hoping to be able to bring Critchley back to continue his growth and development. You know, Instagram is a popular place to go and check on where people are, what they're doing, and what they're up to. And it's been mostly radio silence on that front as well, as far as getting an idea for where Critchley might be or future prospects. So is there any, I guess, sixth sense of sorts on where you see Critchley ending up, or just speculate if you want to?
Could speculate wildly. Wherever he ends up, I hope he stays in St. Louis. Wherever he ends up, I think he's gonna kind of follow the kind of pathway that Demay did a little bit, where you move from interim into an assistant, full-time assistant on a MLS head coaching staff before your next opportunity arises. He's a coach with a bright future, and I think he really buffed up his CV this past summer with St. Louis City. So wherever he ends up, there's no previous coaches that he's worked under, head coaches, unless we count Carnell at Union, but that doesn't seem like a likely spot for me. Normally, you'd look for those connections. Gut says, he'll be an assistant somewhere in the Western Conference in 2026. And then he'll be one of the, coaches to watch as an internal hire next in 2027.
Our eyes on the ground. I got to give Jerry Hayes, our good friend Jerry Hayes, some kind of title, honorary title here at Flyover Footy. She is doing yeoman's work, following what everybody's up to on Instagram, as I mentioned. She's an eagle eye for this, and David Critchley apparently had a late dinner at Louis on Demon on New Year's Eve. So, there you go. It could be that Critchley understands and he wants to stay in an organization. He appreciates maybe Diego Gigliani for giving him the chance. But it could be that he's happy with this kind of trajectory for his career. Things could be promised as a next step for David Critchley, even if he returns to a head coach at City 2. One thing's for sure is that we love David Critchley as a person, as a leader. The players love him as well. We spent so many episodes touting the fact that guys like Roman Berkey, Marcel Hartl, Thomas Totland, and more were vocal about wanting him back. And as a player, as a coach, as a fan, that means a lot coming from the players. So knowing that that's the kind of personality David Critchley has, you got to figure that he would satisfy some of those criteria for a good person that DeMay and Ray had talked about. So it may come down to a style of play, the ability to implement what they're maybe changing in this organization or shifting the first team to that they would then want to align City 2 and the Academy to, as far as the formations, the style, the system, the tactics, all those things. Playing more on the ball is what we expect from a DeMay run St. Louis City. That's my biggest question is will they trust Critchley to do that? The only thing we've seen him do is run a pretty aggressive St. Louis City version 1.0 style offense. Took him a while to shore up the defense. He eventually did. And I think this would be a good evolution for David Critchley to be able to adapt his style, implement this version, whatever it ends up being under DeMay, because we all expect it to look slightly different. We hope to have more on David Critchley. We love the guy. We hope to be able to report some good news that he's staying with the organization, but that would be also kind of selfish if it doesn't end up as an assistant coach role. If he goes back down to City 2 versus if his options are to go back down to City 2 versus go to, let's say, Real Salt Lake as an assistant, or like Stu said, another Western Conference team, good for him. Getting the chance, getting the opportunity to continue to grow and progress in his career is only good for him. And we have to appreciate that. Moving on, one quick reminder I have that I wanted to get in front of everybody because it's early January and this may affect you here at the end of the month going into next month. MLS Season Pass has gone away. Okay, we talked about this in December. It's gone. So what this means is that if you had MLS Season Pass as a subscriber, you may be automatically transitioned over to Apple TV, which is going to be the new home of Major League Soccer matches in 2026. So if you don't want to do that, check your subscriptions. This is your public service announcement from Flyover Footy. We talked on our YouTube exclusive pre-show. Let's call it that. Why not? About fiscally responsible Flyover Footy. We're joking about the Yetis, but this one's for real. Make sure you're checking this and make sure it aligns with what you really want to do. All City matches are going to be on Apple TV. This is the new home of Major League Soccer. If you're a season ticket holder, you will get Apple TV for free as you had MLS Season Pass. If you have any questions, hit us up because I'm happy to answer that for anybody that has them. Now, Stu, let's take a little bit of a look around Major League Soccer. And because there's been a lot of movement. The 2026 MLS season is going to look far different than the 2025 season. Teams are going to be shifting up and down, but it starts at the top. It starts with the leadership. And as of January 8th, and this is going to change because of news that hit on January 8th, there have been 8 new coaching hires throughout Major League Soccer. MLS put out this graphic that I'm sharing on our stream. We have new coaches at Atlanta United, Colorado Rapids, Columbus Crew, LAFC, New England Revolution, Red Bull New York, which they changed their name. If you didn't hear that, it's not New York Red Bulls anymore. It's Red Bull New York. It's a weird rebrand to line up with all their other properties. Anyway, after Red Bull New York, it's SKC and obviously St. Louis City. The late breaking news on January 8th is that Minnesota United is soon to have a new head coach, as Eric Ramsey has been lured away to West Bromwich Albion in the EFL Championship. So they will have a new head coach, probably their assistant. Stu, do you have his name? Sam?
I don't have it pulled up right now.
We'll get in a second. But Stu, I want to ask you.
Cam Knowles,
an assistant with Minnesota United, is expected to be named their head coach. But right now is we'll have 9. Stu, looking at this list, Atlanta, Colorado, Columbus, LAFC, New England Revolution, Red Bull New York, SKC, St. Louis City, Minnesota United. Who are you most excited about seeing as far as playing, and who are you fearing the most, and who are you just raising eyebrows at?
I mean, I'm raising eyebrows at Wiki out in Sporting Kansas. I mean, he's an odd duck in that, similar to DeMay's time as the interim for FC Cincinnati, Wiki was the manager interim, or was he full-time manager? He might have been full-time manager at a very bad Chicago Fire side. So there's, other than that, I mean, he was a U17 U.S. youth national team manager. He's one that you just don't know what you're going to get there. I mean, Kansas obviously won't win many matches if they have no players, and that's where they're at right now. But looking at the graphic, the first thing I thought was, it's great to have a manager and not be in Minnesota's situation where you're losing your manager right on the eve of, camp starting.
Yeah. That's got to be the thing for me, is he's not even pictured on here. And I think Minnesota United is going to be suffering the most. Not to pivot too far away from the coaches, but just stick with Minnesota United. They made the semifinals last year. They made the semifinals of the U.S. Open Cup, but they have lost some firepower. They've lost Hassani Dotson. They've lost Robin Lode. They've lost Dane St. Clair, Joseph Rosales. The great Kip Keller has left Minnesota, has his option declined. Poor Kip. But to lose their coach literally on the eve of camp opening. I mean, we think we have it bad in St. Louis, having no player signings to talk through or announce or discuss, or to have our roster improved. And yeah, that's not ideal. Absolutely. Pretty frustrated that we still don't have any players to talk about, but it seems like it could always be worse. And it's hard to argue that what we're seeing from Minnesota, at least as of January 8th, where their coach is heading across the pond back home to England. Back home to the UK, because he's a Welshman. I think they are struggling. Their fan base is struggling to find where the direction is, find optimism in that place. And this is kind of the latest straw that it's continuing to break the camel's back. Beyond Minnesota, I kind of agree with you that Raphael Wiki is an interesting hire because of his previous experience with Chicago. No pedigree of success, really, and he doesn't have a roster to work with. Some of the guys that I think are pretty set up for success right off the bat, maybe Henrik Rydstrom from Columbus Crew. They seem to be a perennially good club, though I don't think they have actually a single coach returning from last season. Maybe one assistant, but I remember their fans talking about a complete staff turnover after Wilfried Nancy left, Johan DeMay left. The boat was emptied there. And then probably Marc Dos Santos at LAFC. That may be the best situation, and not just situation because of the roster that exists for LAFC with Denny Bawanga and Son Heung-min and everything that they're putting together out there. But the fact that they knew that their coach, Steve Cherundolo, would be leaving early last season. They had so much time to succession plan, think through who they want, talk to people. And so if you're an LAFC fan, you expect Marc Dos Santos to be hitting the ground running, not just because of the roster, but because you expect the organization to have taken all that time that Steve Cherundolo had given them in his 9 months notice to find a better hire. It's almost like if it's a mirror version of St. Louis to an extent, where St. Louis had a lot more happen to the organization, but the coach was gone pretty early. And so they had a lot of time. We're just needing to see the fruits of that. So there's some parallels here, not really apples to apples, but some parallels in a few of these moves. And then, Stu, do you want to talk about the most, probably the one that's going to receive the most coverage, I would bet, of any of these coaches? And which one do you think that would be?
Well, I think it's split between two of them. If you look at Tata and Michael Bradley. Michael Bradley is going to be the MLS media darling.
Yep.
He's already gotten a lot of attention. Michael Bradley, I mean, people who followed his professional career know that he was kind of tagged early on his career as a Nepo baby, to put it kindly, I guess, because obviously Bob Bradley is his father.
Right.
But time and time again over his professional career, he showed that he is a high caliber player and he wasn't getting opportunities just because of his last name. And I think that's going to ring true here with him going to Red Bull New York, but Tata coming back to Atlanta is also going to get a lot of attention. He's obviously a big name. He's found success there in the past. So it'll be a little split, but I'm sure Michael Bradley is going to be the one who's dragging most of the attention.
And on the player front, there's no team that is getting quite as much overall attention as Inter Miami for their ability to just continuously bring in player after player after player. They had 2 designated players retire at the end of last season in Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba. So they've had some flexibility in their roster, right? That's kind of for me where all this starts with Miami, because they have gotten just a ton of coverage on what they've been doing, almost making moves on a daily basis, it seems. And the latest most confusing one being Tadeo Allende, who has a $5 million transfer mark value, and it's being reported that he won't be signing on a DP deal. Now, Allende was on loan to Inter Miami last season. This move's not official yet. It's being reported by Tom Bogert from The Athletic, but to have Allende join them not on a DP deal when he has such a massive valuation and he's received interest from others is quite the eye-opening rumor. Everything else, though, to me, and I put this on social media, everything else adds up in the most frustrating of ways, where it's not Allende, it's Rodrigo de Paul, who's coming in on a DP deal. He's replacing one of Busquets or Alba. So they still have a designated player open. You have Facundo Mora. Dane St. Clair joined them to shore up their goalkeeping. Mikhail is joining them from Palmeiras. There's a lot of other rumored players filling things like a U22 spot, coming in on loan, which means that it depends on how much their home club actually pays of their salary as to what it's hit. I mean, they're using every mechanism under the book to bring in everybody who wants to play with Messi. And that's, I think, what rubs a lot of people the wrong way is you're seeing some hometown discounts of sorts from people who don't live there, like Dane St. Clair, who was offered more money by Minnesota United reportedly, but he signed with Miami because presumably he wants to play with Messi. And that's the power of Lionel Messi. And that's what's gotten a guy like Andrew Wiebe into hot water on social media, who has gone to bat for Lionel Messi and gone to bat for a guy like Thomas Muller up in Vancouver for these, shall we call it, creative ways in which some of these MLS teams are able to sign some of the hottest names in global soccer. And it has nothing to do with the salary cap. It has to do with things like media deals and partnerships with Apple TV, with stakes in Adidas, shares of revenue in merchandising and all that stuff that you won't have a team like St. Louis City or Sporting KC or the Colorado Rapids or the Houston Dynamo. You won't see those teams make signings like this. It just will not happen. I can't. So there's a perspective that a lot of teams are now playing on a different playing field because of their ability to do this, as opposed to just pushing the envelope in a lot of the other ways that Miami's making these moves by using all the roster mechanisms available. And so I can go as far to, I guess, go to bat for somebody like Inter Miami because they're using all the roster mechanisms they can. And I'm almost jealous of the fact that they are, and they're splashing all this cash. They're figuring all this out. But then you get to that point where it's like, would any of it be possible without Lionel Messi? And the only reason that Lionel Messi is with them is because he had all these other outside arrangements. And so this cascade effect is where I have a tough time fully embracing what they're doing and the notion that they're just pushing the envelope and other teams should follow. I think Wiebe's comment that rubbed everybody the wrong way dealt with the fact that, well, you're seeing Inter Miami do this. Other teams should go ahead and try to do something like this too. And I don't think that's feasible given what Major League Soccer is right now. It's not just Inter Miami that went to bat. To be fair, it's pretty much every owner in Major League Soccer went to bat to bring in the GOAT, bring in Lionel Messi. It's a generational player, and I don't think you can replicate that. But now you're seeing years later the cascade effect of they continue to be a powerhouse as long as Messi's playing because of the name and the player's desires to want to play with the greatest of all time as he ends his career.
Yeah, this roster wizardry that Inter Miami is engaging in right now started before Messi. Let's not forget that they got in hot water years ago when they started doing this in 2021, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they got their hands slapped with that under Neville. So I mean, they've
Chris
been
Henderson, I think too, right?
yeah, who's now USL president.
Shout out to
So
USL.
yeah, so I mean, it's not something that they just started doing with Messi. Obviously, Messi's the one who kind of is the main pull to everything happening right now. But FC Cincinnati, they're a good example of another team that really does a good job kind of finding holes in the MLS salary cap structure and roster rules and exploiting them in ways that uh, upset other teams' fans, shall we say. But Miami is also going to see some outgoings. So it's not going to be all incomings. I know at least Talasco Segovia, young midfielder, Argentine, number 8 over there. I think he is connected to, well, I know he's connected in a rumor to Fulham at least. So I assume there's other outgoing connections that they're going to have. So this roster isn't going to be fully all incomings yet. But
Right.
if your team doesn't have the ability, someone who knows MLS roster rules, then you're putting your team at a huge disadvantage to finding ways to strengthen your team.
And I think I saw an Inter Miami fan tell me that in the Inter Miami front office is somebody who used to work for the league in managing a lot of the salary cap issues and information. And so she was brought over to Inter Miami post Chris Henderson, Phil Neville issues. So it could be that they have just brought in the exact right person and she knows how to build a roster. There's an interesting question in our chat that I kind of want to get your take on, Stu, from Fetlord Colton. Is this any different than paying luxury taxes in other sports and just paying for all the good players like the Dodgers would do, where they're totally okay paying a penalty going over this salary cap, but not every other team is willing to do that? I would say no, it's not exactly like that, because in Major League Baseball, for instance, every team can do that. I have a tough time believing every other team is afforded that kind of opportunity to bring in a player who not only can be signed with these intangible deals, but then would also garner the ability to legitimately have folks pay discounts to come in and play with them and leave money on the table. I get where you're coming from. Absolutely get the fact that it's like Inter Miami's going above and beyond, and they're paying so much more because Messi's making just a $20 million salary in and of itself, highest paid player in Major League Soccer by a long shot. It's the extra things that the other teams don't have access to that I think the problem is. In baseball, to me, every team has access to go above the salary cap and pay the luxury tax. Not every team's willing to do that, obviously, as we know in St. Louis. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the exact same as the luxury tax. I mean, baseball has its own problem that we hope that we're not going to get to in MLS with revenue sharing, and obviously the RSNs in Los Angeles that the Dodgers have, and Mets and Yankees, that they can absolutely steamroll and dominate with what they can spend compared to other teams. Now, do the gloves need to come off and roster rules be simplified in the future? Absolutely. Yeah, that would be nice if, I mean, NBA also has incredibly convoluted roster rules, and they seem to be doing pretty well. So, but yeah, are we going to let a team like Miami fully take the gloves off, or an Atlanta United? I mean, if they do, or if the league does, I don't expect St. Louis to match the spending. So
no.
Do we want to be in a situation where we're going to be, in the hole, or what kind of competitive balancing are we going to put out there to deal with that? Or do we just say, that's the nature of competition, and have fun going for 6th place at best every year?
Yeah, and MLS has kind of, in the luxury tax comparison, I think the DP slot itself is the only comparison I could try to make to that, just because every team can now overspend on each other almost without penalty, but you can only get so many of those spots, and it's definitely not apples to apples, but I do see a little bit where the comparison comes from. Stu, besides, and to Miami's credit, the other thing that they're really good at is transferring out players to regain value, to recoup costs. The cash furs, the outgoing transfers, they were benefited by the retirement this season by Jordi Alba and Sergio Busquets. Absolutely benefits them in rebuilding their roster. They wouldn't have been able to sign Rodrigo de Paul without it. And so they are getting kind of lucky in that regard, as their old guard that they brought in with Messi is now kind of turning over to the next generation that will join Messi. But beside that, they do good business in transferring guys out. I've heard rumors that they are looking to transfer out one of their U22s, for instance, and they expect to do that. That is both frustrating, annoying, and tipping of the cap in the U22 conversation, which, spoiler alert for our news later, that they are able to just do that. They say, okay, we need a slot to be open here. We'll just transfer out one of our U22s. No problem. We can take care of it. That's frustrating and annoying to me that they're able to do that. And it seems like they're one of a few teams that can just see a roster spot being taken up by a guy who isn't seeing minutes, know that he has talent and value elsewhere, and just be able to flip him on a dime.
Yeah, one roster mechanism that I'm kind of surprised Miami's not the one attached to the rumor of is taking guys on loan who have played with multiple teams. Say Harvey Elliott, who's played with Liverpool and Aston Villa so far this year, is ineligible to take a loan with another English club. So he's been attached to coming to Charlotte. Play under Dean Smith, who obviously has Premier League connections. I'm kind of surprised that Miami is not connected to a player like him in that situation. That's kind of unique, and he's going to be pushing for minutes, as many minutes as possible. A lot of these guys are before the World Cup, which may have them have eyes drawn to MLS in a situation where they maybe wouldn't, and they'd stay and try to fight on the bench where they are.
Yeah, interesting thought. I actually hadn't thought about that slant yet. We haven't really gotten my head around World Cup time, but the notion that players, especially younger players, might have more visibility this year in Major League Soccer because the World Cup's coming to the U.S., Canada, and Mexico is an interesting dynamic that's going to be worthwhile to follow. Stu, what other teams do you find have been making the biggest moves? Because on my list, teams to watch out for in general, the Houston Dynamo. They've been retooling pretty hard. Latest rumor for the Houston Dynamo is that Mateus Bogus is coming from Cruz Azul, former LAFC attacker. We fans know him pretty well in St. Louis. Did a lot of damage, was part of a really prolific attack against St. Louis. They've got Guilherme coming from Santos as a designated player. They are re-signing Hector Herrera, one of the dirtiest players in Major League Soccer from what we've seen at times. Coming back from Toluca, is supposedly not going to be a DP in his decrepit old age. But in general, they're just building a better powerhouse team. Jack McGlynn will still be there. He's got a lot of he will have ability to move on the field. I think Goss and Tom Boger were talking about him playing more of an 8.5 now and getting into a natural position. They've got a lot of outgoings from Houston. If you look on their page, I think on MLSsoccer.com, Houston's outgoing players with options declined basically takes up the entire screen if you're looking on a laptop. But I think Houston is going to be a team to watch after where they underperformed in 2025.
Yeah, they declined a lot of options, that Houston team. So it definitely will be an interesting one. Even guys who have been around for a while, or it feels like they've been around for a while, like Ethan Bartlow over there. Houston's always a club that we seem to always battle well. So that'll be interesting just from an energy approach. But man, I really was enjoying not having Ache in the league. So him coming back, it's not going to be fun to watch.
There have been a lot of outgoings lately. There's a lot of free agent pickups, none bigger in the free agent pickups than Christian Espinoza, who signed with Nashville. Nashville's been busy. Jacob Schaffelberg went to LAFC and then summarily got injured, as I understand. I think he's getting ready to have surgery or something to that effect. But Nashville is going to be a team to watch that we don't play in 2026. So watch them and have fun because Christian Espinoza, one of the greatest playmakers, greatest chance creators in Major League Soccer, is joining Nashville, and it's going to be a beast with Sam Surridge, with Hani Mukhtar. That may be one of the best attacks in the entire league in 2026. Supposedly Espinoza had a DP offer from Portland, so there's a lot of big teams willing to splash cash. LAFC also, but he decided to join Nashville and presumably join them because he knows that they're on the cusp of greatness in the East.
Yeah, and one signing that they made today, I believe that could be just kind of a low hanging fruit signing. See how that works out. Is Shaq Muhammad signed?
Oh
He
yeah.
left Orlando City. He was kind of lighting up MLS Next Pro, 28 goals in 77 matches for Orlando City too. He's a former number 2 overall draft pick from 2023. He was one of the guys that we were maybe attached to drafting first overall that year. And then we traded down and drafted Owen O'Malley. I mean, he's an interesting one. He's adding more. If he finally figures it out and he's not blocked anymore at Orlando, he could be a really interesting and smart pickup by Nashville.
Stu, let's wind down the MLS talk, and before we shift to City, because there's a decent amount that I want to talk about with St. Louis City, even though we don't have any new players. Give me a couple other teams to watch for. I'll give you mine really quick. San Diego and Seattle. Those are the other two teams that I think had some pretty good pickups so far in this offseason. San Diego they lost Luca De La Torre to Charlotte, I believe it was. Yeah. Yep. Charlotte, but San Diego is going to be a powerhouse. They've picked up David Vasquez, Lewis Morgan from Red Bull New York, Kieran Sargent, Oscar Verhoeven from the Earthquakes, and Oni Valakari from Pafos. They've been making moves. Count 7 total as of January 1st, incomings, fully acquired, trades, or waivers. And they haven't sent out too much. Luca De La Torre is the only big name that I see that they sent out. And Seattle's been making moves as well, bringing in Hassani Dodson, Ryan Saylor, Max Anchor, and they're rumored to be picking up a couple more here recently. And they've lost some firepower. I say Japalo was out of contract. Ryan Kent, a few rotational guys, but Seattle's going to be another powerhouse team I think we have to deal with in the West. Any other teams that really strike your fancy or have you raise an eyebrow at? Besides DC in the East. I forgot about DC.
Yeah, DC was mine because bringing in Ty Baribo and drafting Markovic and really getting Richie Amon. Richie Amon was a guy who's expected to be drafted pretty high up. And he fell a bit. Sean Nealis is another interesting one that they picked up. So they're really not sitting on their laurels, or they don't have any laurels, but getting that wooden spoon, they're not looking to repeat at this point, which is nice to see some ambition over there. And I'm glad they're not in the West this year. Another one is Kansas. They're interesting just because they don't have a lot of players. So what are they going to do?
They're one to watch just because we don't know what team they're going to be. I think they might be the biggest X factor in this entire.
Oh, I'm going to hate watch them so much. Hopefully seeing them just collapse to a wooden spoon season would be the most glorious thing.
Speaking of DC United, player who was waived as of today that is getting some chatter in our chat, Austrian left back David Schnegg. 27 years old, and he was waived by DC United. Paul Harvey, our friend on Blue Sky, made note of David Schnegg earlier on Thursday that he's one of the few quality players that DC has let go that is actually worthwhile in picking up. And for a team like St. Louis, who has no rostered starting caliber left back at this moment, David Schnegg has got to at least have been looked at by Corey Ray and group. Now, he's expensive. He made around $700,000 last year in his salary. But when you're looking to fill a roster slot, and spoiler alert for where we're about to talk about, when you're wanting to fill a roster slot, such as a left back or a left wing back, and you have never truly had an answer to that position that has lasted you an entire year, I would argue, it might be worth splashing cash. If you get the right feel about a player, if they check all those boxes that DeMay and Corey Ray were talking about the person, the player profile, on paper, David Schnegg seems like he would be a good fit, albeit an expensive fit. But St. Louis is flush with some GAM, and they have the ability to buy a player like that down. That's $700,000 is not max budget charge, so they wouldn't need to use. He wouldn't be a TAM player, presumably. That profile of a player, at least, is what St. Louis fans are seeing available on the market and thinking, yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, I mean, $700,000 is less than Tomas Ostrak's going to make next year. So if I can get a starting quality left back for $700,000, I'm jumping on that if it's possible and available.
Well, Stu, let's pivot a little bit to some City talk. and you're listening to Flyover Footy on the Big 550 KTRS. We're pivoting to the part of the conversation I think every single person has been wanting to hear about, the big talk about where St. Louis City stands as we go into training camp. And I've got a treat for you. If you're looking at us on live stream, you get to see what has happened visually in the offseason so far for St. Louis City. And hold your breath, folks, because this is kind of ugly. Incomings versus outgoings so far in the 2026 St. Louis City offseason. We've got columns for incomings, columns for outgoings, and oh my goodness, the column for incomings is completely empty. No, I'm sorry. Josh Yaro and Ben Lute do not count as incomings, even though they were technically not rostered for a short period of time, and then they were re-signed. We're looking at the outgoing so far this offseason of Rasmus Alm, Alfredo Morales, Akil Watts, Michael Venzel, Selmir Pedro. Hey, he was still rostered. Seth Antwi, Jay Reed, Joey Zielinski, and as of January 8th, at least, Devin Padelford, Conrad Vollum, and Henry Kessler. I have an incomings column. The question is, why even have an incomings column? I hope to fill it at some point. The outgoings may increase a little bit, and I'm betting on it will, but there's got to be, there will be. And so this is almost like table setting. Like, all right, here's where we stand in 2026. Here's the work that we've done so far. And you know that this left column for incomings is going to be filled up. That's the purpose of this. Beyond that, we're looking at timelines here. There's frustration in this fan base. There's anticipation. There's heart palpitations occurring in this fan base because we are currently, as of January 8th, one of 2 teams out of 30 in Major League Soccer that have yet to sign a new player in this offseason. We joined the prestigious San Jose Earthquakes as the only other team to not have any announced signings. Now, I said a caveat at the beginning, not every signing is created equal, and I'm fully aware that just signing a player for the sake of signing a player isn't going to move the needle, and I've made that argument, and I stand by that I'm not looking for St. Louis to just announce a signing, a free agent who can compete with Josh Yaro for emergency minutes or compete with Tyson Pierce on who can play the most minutes for City 2 to start the season. I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for players who can move the needle. I do see a few down here at the bottom, Devin Padelford, Conrad Vollum, and Henry Kessler, who can move the needle. They're not going to be new signings, so the impact to the fan base, I think, is debatable on what that would be as far as the fervor and the excitement that it would create. But Stu, when I look at those 3 players, let's start with those 3 players. Maybe rank them for me in order of excitement of if we were looking at them, who would you be most excited for us to re-sign? Vollum, Kessler, or Padelford?
I'd be most excited about King Cass coming back. Just our center, our back line, but assuming that Vollum is fully recovered from the tattoo that he was getting that Jerry showed from Instagram.
Yep.
No, I'm going with Cass just on a personal level, and also that center back depth really scares me.
Yeah, well, center back depth definitely scares me. The fact that we don't have a left back scares me even more.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about the overall depth in a minute. But honestly, Padelford or Vollum would satisfy that. Vollum would have a lot more flexibility, I think. Could play he could play an attacking wing back on either side. He can play a 6. He can play a wide 10. There's a lot of flexibility Vollum showed us last season, and a player like that makes me wonder, where would Corey Ray project him? Where does the data show that he would be best suited at? Does it show him in the midfield? If so, maybe not the best option. But if it shows him on the wings, we've got massive needs. Thomas Totlin is our only legit fullback that would be an acceptable starter. But the other factor is we don't know what formation we're going to roll. So we're going to talk about that in a minute, whether we do 4 in the back or 3 center back look. And that does change the equation of who would be more valuable to me, Conrad Vollum or Henry Kessler, because you can't have a 3 center back look when your 4 rostered center backs are Falou Fall, Timo Baumgartel, Josh Yaro, and Kyle Hebert, and Haziel Orozco. Sorry, 5. It doesn't work that way. You can't make that happen. I like all of Hebert, Orozco, and Yaro as people. I like some of them as players, but none of them as starters. And that's where we run into issues right now. Stu, one of the things that I wanted to mention are comments that have been said in the very recent past from Diego and from Corey Ray that I do think help set the stage for where we're coming. We have Diego Gigliani from November, end of November, talking about what was ahead for fans, what fans could look forward to. And Diego said specifically in late November, and I know anything can change, so this is a month and a half old at this point, but Diego said fans can expect 2 or 3 starters to come in. And again, we're going to look at the depth chart in a minute, but 2 or 3 starters from Diego. At the same time, Corey Ray is talking about squad evolution happening over the next 6 to 12 months. So looking at who all we've had outgoing already kind of puts it in perspective of the fact that we kept 24 players under roster to end the 2025 season when John Hackworth and Diego made those decisions. That has this graphic right here, looking at all of these players. We've got all Morales, Watts, Wenzel, Pedro, Antwi, Reed, Zielinski, Padelford, Vollum, and Kessler. It's 11 players that are going out. It puts it into perspective with the youth that we had on loan last year, Perez, Pierce, the youth that's hopefully going to see more minutes in Joyner this year. 2 or 3 starting caliber players will make a difference. The 6 to 12 month time frame tells me that we're going to see movement this window, but we're not going to see all of the movement. We're not going to see a roster that starts on February 21st and is the picture perfect model of what Corey Ray wants the St. Louis City style to be run by. There will be some square pegs in round holes, so to speak. There will be maybe some square pegs in rectangle holes too, that they fit, but they don't look perfect in this. They work, but they're not the most ideal. I think that's going to happen too. And that's probably where some of the attacking players are going to fit in on our roster who are going to need to have a little more quality ball control. Stu, I want to look at the actual roster itself as we head into camp opening, and multiple roster slots open. We have at least 5 senior roster slots open, 2 supplemental. If my estimations are correct, that Ben Lunt would be on the senior roster and Josh Yarrow has accepted a senior minimum contract to be on the supplemental. Could look a little bit different if those assumptions don't pan out. I kind of want to use this time to break the news, Stu. Do you think it's a good time for that?
Yeah, go for it.
It might be news. You might have been paying attention, but just in case you haven't been paying attention, it's as official as it can be without it being officially announced. Jake Girdwood-Reich will remain on loan with Auckland FC until June 2026. When Jake Girdwood-Reich was loaned out to Auckland in 2025, it was announced that he had a loan option or a recall option from St. Louis that could be triggered by January 1st. January 1st has not only passed, but Jake Girdwood-Reich has played minutes for Auckland on January 5th. He will not be with St. Louis City to start the season. Worse than that, if the reports and the information that the club has given us remains accurate after that purchase option passed, JGR will still occupy a U22 slot at the first half of this season. If you don't remember, that was something I was able to confirm with the club when he was loaned out, is that he still occupies a U22 slot, even though he's out on loan. And all of that has to do with how the loan was orchestrated. Who's paying the bulk of his salary? It plays a big factor. And the loan was not orchestrated apparently in a way that JGR was able to be removed from that U22 designation. So yeah, sorry, that's a dead U22 slot sitting on our roster for the first half of the season. That's part of the squad evolution that Corey Ray is discussing, where he's hamstrung by certain things that he's now having to work around. And that's just kind of a fact of the matter with this roster, where we can sign one more U22. We can sign one more DP. Those are the 2 big roster slots that we have available. It's not one and the other. It's one or the other. We could use the designated player roster construction model that would put us at 3 DPs and 3 U22s, or we could do the 2 DPs we have now in Marcel Hartl and Roman Berkey, and then 3 DPs of Songbin Zhang, Falou Fall, Jake Girdwood-Reich, and a new signing. Those are our options. If for a refresher, if we use the U22 model, if we sign a new U22, we also get $2 million in GAM, $1 million for the first half of the season. And if we stay in that model, during the summer window, another $1 million after that. If we go the DP model, we just don't get the GAM. So there's flexibility that Corey Ray has to work with, but unfortunately, not as much as we would like, even if we were able to do all the business in the world that we were capable of in this window. The summer is going to be interesting because JGR will presumably, I don't want to say presumably, I don't know if he'll return or not, but the writing doesn't seem on the wall for him to return. He seems like he's having a great time and he's succeeding in Auckland. I don't see him returning. I'll say that. What about you, Stu?
Yeah, I don't see him returning either. He seems happy over there. Whether he ends up long-term at Auckland, I'm not sure. I mean, he's a young guy who I'm sure is going to, as maybe unreasonable as it sounds, is going to be pushing for more international minutes. Just looking at the roster also for this year, we have 14 guys who are going to be out of contract potentially at the end of 2026. A lot of options there that could get picked up, but some that aren't. So yeah, I mean, when they say it's 6 to 12 months, it's 6 to 12 months. There's a lot of bodies in, a lot of bodies out. And one thing that could happen as well is we're still starting camp. So there's 9 new coaches in MLS. There are going to be managers who figure out that, guys don't work in their system, who they want to move them around. So there's going to be a lot of movement potential there. Hopefully Corey has his ear to the ground for some of these guys who might not be a fit, like Sangbin wasn't in Minnesota, and could make their way over to St. Louis and add some value. So we'll see how the roster shakeup goes, or, if we pick up a veteran guy like Morales in the middle of camp.
And Corey Ray did talk about his connections. He talked about how he has a lot of connections. He's got a lot of experience in different clubs. He knows people. And I think to that point where you're having all this movement, all these different coaches implementing different systems throughout, there are a lot of unknowns that will be shaking out in preseason, especially. Not just the trialists. I think we can expect to see a trialist or two in Florida if we have a camp there, which hasn't been announced, but also at Coachella Valley Invitational in California, which has been announced. We'll have 2 games out there. I would definitely expect to have a trialist or 2. And if you're not familiar with soccer terms, trialist is basically just kind of like a walk-on. He's trying out for the club. They don't ever publicize the name. There's not going to be a name on the jersey, so we're going to be using binoculars to try to figure out who that guy is. It's what we did with Alfredo Morales. The club doesn't announce it. It's an old school competitive advantage type of thing for teams that is just frustrating to not have the transparency in that. But we will have that happen in preseason, in training camp. And then I think that's what you said, Stu, is something that a lot of folks need to remember, is about the changes that will happen between teams in preseason and into the beginning of the season. The transfer window remains open into the beginning of the season. So the transfer window in Major League Soccer hasn't technically opened yet. Camp hasn't started, so it's not really like it matters. But unlike England and most of Europe, where it opened on January 1st, the transfer window doesn't open until later this month. I don't even think it's been officially announced what day. I'd heard a report from, I think, Hudson River, the NYCFC old SB Nation site, that was reporting January 23rd. Heard another report that was January 31st, but that hasn't actually officially been announced by MLS to my knowledge. If it has, I would love to be corrected. But all that means is those players can't join. I don't think it affects preseason. So the players can play if they've got their registration done. It affects games that will happen in February. So it's one of those things that it matters, but it doesn't matter. As far as internationals coming in, it might matter more. Now, where St. Louis goes as far as roster construction is one thing. Where St. Louis goes as far as the depth needed and who we need to sign is definitely a different thing. And we have 2 kind of options to show you to finish off this episode of Flyover Footy. The first option is what St. Louis City could look like in a 4-man back line, where 2 center backs, left back, right back, 2 central midfielders, 3 attacking midfielders, and a striker of 4-2-3-1. That has been the bread and butter of St. Louis for the entire existence of City, except for the 15 matches that Olaf Melberg coached. So, Stu, looking at this, the red, if you're looking at this visually, the red is from me and my estimations of where we would need somebody. And let me talk through this for our audio listeners. At striker, we've got Klaus and Betcher. At left mid up there, we've got Salio and Joyner. At center attacking mid, Marcel Hartl, Tomas Ostrak, and Caden Glover, mainly because I don't know where to put Caden Glover at this point. Right mid, Songbin Zhang, Cedric Toyshirt, and Brendan McSorley. Central mid, Eder Leuven and Chris Durkin with Miguel Perez as depth. Left back, I purposefully put a red box on the starting left back because, like I said earlier, I put Orozco twice. I meant Orozco and Hebert. But Orozco or Hebert could be over there. Falufal, Timo Baumgartel as our center back starters. Thomas Totland as our right back starter. And then the depth in our back line is just Josh Arrow, Kyle Hebert, and Tyson Pierce. Goalkeepers are good to go. Possibly one of the only few positions totally good to go. Roman Berkey, Ben Lunt, and Christian Oliveras. But my red boxes on our absolute needs, there's a theme here, and it's mostly defense. Left back, center back, right back, 2 central mids. Arguable that we could use another attacker in comparison to all of these, but I'm looking to raise the overall quality, not just throw in a player who could be better than a Songbin or better than a Toyshirt. We need to shore up and raise the quality for all of these other positions, not even ignoring the fact that we don't know if Edu Leuven's going to be fully healthy and fully available. Not fully healthy in the sense of an injury, but fully available with his off the field, with everything off the field. And we know what's going on. But that's something I think that Ray needs to plan for. And it might be somebody who's better than Durkin, but if push comes to shove, you could start Durkin and this other central midfielder. But I think that to me is why there's a massive need at central mid, knowing that Tomas Ostrak can play that position. I didn't cross-reference folks here, so I know Tomas Ostrak can play central mid, and maybe that's extra depth. But to me, there still needs to be somebody who is maybe better than Durkin or equal to Leuven or Durkin that we have as an option at central mid. We don't know enough about Miguel Perez being ready to have that increased role backing up Chris Durkin or Edu Leuven in central mid after being with City 2 for all last season and Birmingham before that. So, Stu, seeing this, what are your thoughts on if we had a 4-2-3-1, where our biggest areas of need are?
Well, obviously, we don't have a left back. So that's a little scary. The idea of Orozco starting left back day one is not one that I relish. Can Eddie Niles play center mid? No, just joking. So
can't believe we made it an hour into the show without mentioning Eddie Niles yet.
Yeah,
That's
it's going to be
tragedy.
2026 is the year of Eddie Niles.
It is.
So yeah, left back is my most immediate red flag on this formation. But if we're going 3 at the back and we're doing a 3 at back or 5 at the back with 3 center backs of, Fall, Baumgartel, and either Yarrow or Hebert, then I'm real nervous going into the season with that. Not to mention we also don't have a left wing back in that formation. So it's, oh man, no, I'm going to have to go left back. And then I want a backup who can play both fullback sides, left, right. And
See, to me, you're making an argument for Conrad Wallem being the most important player in contract negotiations to be signed. And I was hoping to push you into this. I was hoping to push you into this with this graphic.
Yeah, but I like Kessler. He's just a
Who
fun
doesn't?
guy. Yeah, Mr. Amtrak and man of the people.
Absolutely, man of the people. I mean, he's always asking recommendations on social media for places to eat and see and explore. He's got the greatest pictures on Instagram. But let me show you another graphic, and let me talk about another formation, because it's not just a 4-2-3-1, but Johan Demey has a ton of experience with Columbus in a wing back system, 3 center backs. So if we were to play a 3 center back, this looks, I would say, different in a more kind of a way. So if we were running a 3 center back look, I would assume it would be a 3-4-2-1 with the wing backs up near the central mids for formational purposes. And front to back, let's look at Klaus and Betcher as our striker. 2 attacking midfield positions. One group I have as Marcel Hartl, then Celio Pompeu and Brendan McSorley. The other group I have Songbin Zhang, Cedric Toyshirt, and Caden Glover. But basically you have Hartl and Songbin as your 2 starters, Toyshirt and Pompeu behind them. Central midfielders, the 2 in the middle, Leuven and Durkin again, with Ostrak plugged in behind Leuven. I think that, and I was even borderline putting Ostrak behind Leuven in the first formation. But Leuven, Durkin, Ulstrock, Perez in the central midfield. Our wing backs in a 3-4-2-1. Again, I don't have a starting left wing back. I have Joyner and Orozco out there, but I haven't seen enough from Joyner to say, okay, he's ready to go as a starting, unequivocal day one starter left wing back. He's definitely more prone to a left mid, left wing role. We've seen him at times as a left wing back late in the season. I think, in fact, he was playing a left wing back in that infamous Vancouver game that still boils my blood on how they gifted Robert Mueller a goal. But on the right wing back side, Thomas Totland and Tyson Pierce. And the center backs for a 3 center back. And this is where I'm pretty much back to you on Henry Kessler as the player profile we would most need if we were in a 3 center back look, is you have Phill Fall, Timo Baumgartel, Kyle Hebert, and Josh Yarrow as our 4 center backs in a 3 center back look. And in the graphic, I've got Phill Fall and Timo Baumgartel as 2 of the starters. And I've got 2 red boxes under center back because I don't have either Yarrow or Hebert starting. Josh Yarrow or Kyle Hebert cannot be day one starters opening day against Charlotte. It just cannot happen.
Yeah, this is a bleak. Both these formation graphics are fairly bleak. Yeah, I'm not sold on Joyner as a left wing back option going forward. I like that idea, but yeah, like you said, Conrad Wall. What do we got to do to make it happen?
So there's another section I have on these graphics, and there's a question in the chat from Safe V5T about, are you guys expecting the super draft pick to get some minutes this year? And the 3 super draft picks were Zach Lillington, who I'm just going to focus on Zach Lillington for a second because I think he's the one who will get first team minutes. Don't have his information in front of me. I think he's from Xavier, but he oh no, he's not from Xavier. Stu, where's Zach Lillington from?
Oh my gosh, I'm blanking right now. He is from
UC Davis. Zach Lillington from UC Davis. Sorry about that brain fart. Center back. He was named the number 1 right center back in the MLSsoccer.com rankings of the super draft. We took him as our 7th overall. Basically, if you look at the ASA stats, American Soccer Analysis, he was the far and away the best pick that we could have taken at that point. And we took him as a right center back, but he played so many different roles. He played as more of a midfielder, moving up ahead of the center backs. Heard that he might be scouted as a wing back, so he's got flexibility there. You've got all these openings. You've got a couple openings on the supplemental roster. I absolutely think that Zach Lillington has an opportunity to get some first team minutes. Now, we wouldn't be breaking a mold. Like, there have been other teams that have signed super draft picks, like DC United have signed a couple of their super draft picks to first team contracts, but we don't usually do that this early. And so to not see Zach Lillington in camp and then go ahead and sign him, that would surprise me a little bit. But there was a lot of praise. We had a lot of that praise coming back in December when we reviewed the super draft, that Zach Lillington was an absolute player to watch when we picked him, and excitement for what he could offer us on the first team in 2026. If we're going to get an option on the first team, it's going to be Zach Lillington to me. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was signed to a first team contract. But I hope, honestly, that he doesn't see significant minutes. Super draft pick, brand new into the league, throwing him in there that quick, it doesn't scream success. And it also screams a little bit of desperation. That's the problem I really have, is that if you're going to be relying on a super draft pick his first year at center back to be playing that many minutes, you've made some interesting roster choices. I'll say that, in not filling that with other either experienced talent or higher caliber talent. Maybe, I'm not sure if that's the right word I want to use, but do you agree with me on that front, Stu, or would you be comfortable with Zach Lillington being that 3rd starting center back in a 3 center back look?
Yeah, just looking at last year, the 2024 center backs who got drafted pretty high up in the year, Max Floriani, who went number 2 to San Jose Earthquakes, and Jensen Miller, St. Louis's own, who went number 8th, because he went 8th to Kansas. They both played, I think, admirably as rookies, and Floriani was less of a bang-on starter, but Jansen was mostly I think he started 25 games for Kansas last year. I don't want to be in that situation where we're relying on a first round pick as a starter, unless Lillington really, really impresses. But I'd, again, rather not put ourselves in that position. I don't think that's a wise roster build to do.
And if he does impress, he wouldn't presumably get a contract until February, which would make sense. That's the time period. And I posted it on X Twitter a couple weeks ago or maybe a week ago. It's been a long week of timelines from the past few years of St. Louis signing players: November, December, January, February. And these super draft signings happened like Jose Kojima in February. So it didn't happen early. It happened until after when we saw them on the field. And I think that would need to happen for it to be as exciting. We need to see him have success in preseason. And then it's okay. Yeah, we can get behind this guy. He's really performing, as opposed to signing him based on scouting, based on his play in college. That would be a little less exciting to me. Even if he has all the talent in the world, it would just be a thing we would have to wait and see to really understand. Anything else jump out at you, Stu? And this might be a good segue into the last topic that I want to kind of have some fun with, because we've talked the holes, we've talked the formations. Obviously we have holes at center back, in the central midfield, the left back, left wing back, and backup right back or right wing back, so to speak, depending on how big of a jump Tyson Pierce can make. That he could be one of the X factors that we have on this roster, Tyson Pierce, in how big of a role he's able to take, and what kind of protection that could offer in not needing to sign maybe a backup right back or a central midfielder, wherever they project Tyson Pierce to play. But Stu, I want to finish this show looking at our top 3 likeliest things to happen this preseason and our top 3 unlikeliest things to happen this preseason. Some of them may be a little obvious, some of them may be a little off the wall, but I'll start with my top 3 things that I see as most likely to happen this preseason. Number 1, we sign at least 2 new players who will be in our starting 11 on February 21st against Charlotte. This goes maybe against the mold that a lot of people have again for right now with Corey Ray regime of signing players, but it's only January 8th. We still have a month and a half at least until opening day. These are soccer players who know when to get in shape. We talked about the mechanisms in which we could sign new players, like a trialist, trades with other team, international signings. The list goes on, and how we can sign people. I think we're going to sign at least 2 new players who will be in our starting 11. So these depth charts that we've been looking at here, I think these depth charts will be overtaken. A left back, I think we'll have one, and then somewhere else, but at least 2 players. My other most likely thing to happen this preseason is that we transfer out at least 1 player currently rostered. That is a hallmark. And I know it's under Lutz Pfannenstiel, but that's been a hallmark of St. Louis, is to transfer out some player, whether it's an Indiana Vasilev, a Nico Gioacchini, or anybody else after the 2023 season. But we've had a big name go out before the season starts. And I think at least 1 player currently rostered, whether it's a big name or not, is still going out. So the outgoings will grow, in my opinion, as well. And then my number 3 most likely thing to happen is we make a trade within MLS. And I swear I had this written before you mentioned the fact of all these different coaches and how that could, the implementation of the systems. I agree with all. I think we make a trade within MLS, whether it's for a player as a cash for trade or a GAM, something. I think we acquire somebody else. And I think it will happen before 2/21. Now, I will say that the biggest problem that I see, and I'm watching the chat over here, and it's hilarious to me in a lot of ways, but the biggest problem I see with my friend Soccer Zombies Cedric Toyshirt goodbye for my number 2 on a transfer out, said he's hurt, guys. Said he's not healthy. Yeah, we're not going to be able to transfer, in my opinion, out a player who's going into preseason not fully fit. Last we heard from Seti was those end of season press conferences. Chris Durkin's over here telling us that he's 100% fit, ready to go into the offseason training. Seti says, I hope to be healthy around preseason. That's not the marker of a guy that you're going to be able to move. And Seti's under contract until June. So time will tell on Seti, but I would not expect him to be the player who's sent out. I think it's going to be a fit, a profile that maybe doesn't fit exactly. Probably have a host of players who might not be fitting the system that DeMay is going to be implementing. And so there could be a list of players capable. It's just who's Ray going to be able to move. That's the thing. He's legit injured. He had a groin injury last season for what it's worth. And that persisted for quite a while. It's kind of a really unfortunate thing. He's not like injured, waiting for a move kind of a thing. Stu, give me your 3 likeliest things.
Mine are pretty boring. I'll go from least exciting to most exciting. I think we're going to have a trialist to make the roster similar to last year. Who that trialist will be, I have no idea at the moment. I think we're going to go out and get a starting caliber left back. I don't know if that's going to be a Cashfer or transfer externally, but I think we're going to start the season with the left back. That's not Hazi Alarasco, which will be good. And I think we dropped the new Energy Yellow away kit, and people are going to hate it at first, and then they're going to grow to love it. It'll be well loved over the years, just something a little bit different. And those are my 3.
You think people will hate the Energy Yellow? Is that part of your likeliest things to happen?
No, I just think kits, when they're first released, get a lot of hate on the initial day or two. It's just like when you release the initial branding for a new crest or something like that.
Yeah.
A lot of initial hate, and then once people get used to it, it warms up to a lot of people.
That's fair. I think the thing that bugged a lot of people last year is our Forever City Red seemed plain, and the collar was very divisive.
People hate collars, I guess.
That's true. I do think that they'll hit a home run with this one. I have a really good feeling about this. And fans have been clamoring for a unique kit. Yellow, especially with our colors that we've been running out, is definitely unique. And if you're looking at our screen right now, and if you're familiar with the Flyover logo, we've got yellow in spades. So I will be more than happy with a yellow city jersey. That's for sure. Now, rounding out this episode with our top 3 unlikeliest things. This might be fun. This might be more sad than anything. My most unlikely thing that will happen, and this is a cop-out, most unlikely thing is that City makes no moves, and they are happy with 23 players active on the roster. And this is mostly tongue-in-cheek for the people who are just fed up with no announcement, no players signed yet, and any of that. It's going to happen. I can promise you that somebody will be signed. If we don't sign another player, I will stop doing the Flyover Footy for 2026. We're going to sign another player. That's the most unlikely thing that could possibly happen. My second one is Haziel Orozco or Kyle Hebert starts at left back or left wing back against Charlotte. Regardless of 4-2-3-1, 3-4-2-1, I think it's highly unlikely that either starts. And this is probably the opposite of what you said in the first, which is basically us saying the same thing. And then my other one, I think I've said these in order of most unlikely. Super unlikely, near impossible, we're not going to sign any player. Super unlikely, we're not going to have Orozco or Hebert start at left back, left wing back. Marginally unlikely that St. Louis signs no attacking help. And this one is going to frustrate the fan base if this ends up happening. But you saw my depth chart. You heard me talk about the depth chart. Massive help is needed on our back line and in the midfield. We have quality players, I believe, that have been playing with us for years and were just brought on last year in our attack. If Cedric Toyshirt returns to health and what he was at the back half of 2024 and what he was with Hanover, that's a quality player. Klaus, Toyshirt, Songbin, Hartle, Salio, if we can get him to be in possession and then work with others as opposed to just taking players 1v1 deep. Brendan McSorley's out there as a wild card. He had his wisdom teeth removed. I think he at least had a dentist trip this offseason. So, his hamstrings might be super powered at this point. Makai Joyner should be taking the next evolution. I don't know. I don't want to block Joyner. I just see the writing on the wall to me is Corey Ray has said that the almost point blank, the number one priority, we have to address the back line. I don't see that as one player on the back line. I see multiple players. So it's unlikely to me, but still might not be that unlikely to me. So I've got St. Louis signing no attacking help.
Yeah, yours are a little bit more serious and depressing.
Oh, sorry.
Hopefully your unlikeliest are very unlikely. No, I'm going with something a little, maybe more unlikely, which is City starts off hot. We equal kind of our 2023 energy where we go on a 6-game unbeaten run. DeMay gets a lifetime contract by March when other teams are starting to look at him internationally. So we lock him down. That's my
wow.
first. Yeah, might as well. He's going to be a club legend by March.
I'm into it.
Just no pressure at all. Because of this, Lewandowski passes on Chicago Fire, which he's rumored to maybe end up going to. And this summer, he goes to St. Louis instead.
Oh.
Hopefully, that'll end up with some good pierogi in St. Louis. We'll see about that. And finally, we'll see the Golden Yeti giveaway, where to celebrate the new incredible away or Energy Yellow away kit, they're going to give away a Golden Yeti, which entitles one person to free drinks at Energizer Park in perpetuity.
Whoa.
Yourself and your heirs. We'll just put it that way. Drink a lot of soda. Get that math.
Oh, we don't even need to do math on that. The Golden Yeti. Oh, how do we get that going? Hashtag Golden Yeti at Energizer Park. And it's generational. This thing is left into your will implicitly. Passed down at any game ever at Energizer Park. I'm going to take it one step further. Any person that owns this Golden Yeti, free drinks for life. Non-alcoholic drinks, obviously. But
yeah, it'd be too much to ask. We're not made out of money.
No, I love that. That's yours were. I'm glad we ended on yours. They were a lot more fun than mine. That's it for us on Flyover Footy. Thank you for joining us on this inaugural episode of 2026. We've had a blast having some fun here, talking City, talking MLS, talking assistant coaches, which I did promise you about the other day. So thank you for joining us. As always, for Stuart Hultgren, my good friend in soccer, my name is Matt Baker. We appreciate you joining us on this and every Thursday. We may be back weekly. We expect news next week, but it's 2026. We're happy to be back. We're excited to be talking City. We'll have news soon. Don't worry. And for always and ever, go City.
Go City.
All right, that's the end of the pod recording. Now, for all you sickos who are still tuning in, I do have one little tease to show before we call it. Again, thank you for that. Is all the Yeti talk. I can't do Yeti talk for real. I was actually, if you want to throw out how many games you're planning on going to at Energizer Park, I will tell you really quick whether it makes sense or not for you to get the Yeti. I have my order ahead app pulled open where I'm looking at soda and drink prices here. I can see that it costs $9.29 to get a self-serve fountain soda, $6.79 to get a water. So if you tell me how many games you're going to, I will say if you're drinking soda, it will take this many games. The easy answer is if you're just buying a soda per game, you need to go to 11 games. If you're buying, let me pull up a calculator here real quick because this one gets a little tricky for water. If you're buying a water per game, you need to go to 15 games to make your money back. And that's combined between City and City 2. So, if you're going to all 17, you will make your money back if you get drinks at every game. If you're season, like I've always said, if you're a season ticket holder and you bring it to every game, just MLS only, you will make your money back. Whether that's enough for you or not, I still hope that City adopts that middleman policy that I mentioned on social media where they partake in the buyback program that Yeti actually does, because we don't have a retail store around here. Even if we were fine paying the price and we just want to be environmentally conscious, which these are not really, we wouldn't be able to unless we trekked to Leawood, Kansas is the closest Yeti retail store. So hopefully we get something on that in the future. But yeah, there you go. 11 games if you're buying soda. If you're buying water, 15 games. And if you're a season ticket holder, it makes sense. And if you're going to City 2 games, it makes sense that much more. But at the same time, I totally get that yearly Yeti things are they are more of a cash grab than what is possible to do if you were just focused on the environmentally conscious aspect of it and not the financial aspect of it as well. So, so hopefully that's all the Yeti talk you need. Aaron Hansen, I appreciate you for that question. Thank you so much. And yeah. Here's a little tease. We are working on our first jersey. So more to come. This is a small tease. And if you saw that logo in the top right, yeah, that's where it kind of came from. So hopefully you enjoy what's coming. I will have more information hopefully very soon. So thank you for tuning in. We appreciate all you guys. And it is absolutely from Olive and York, Soccer Zombie. Have a great rest of the weekend, folks. Hit us up on social media if you have any questions about any of the roster stuff. Hopefully, this might be the impetus before some news gets dropped. And again, players report for camp on January 10th. So we will be getting app updates. Don't have an aneurysm if they're about player pictures and not red smoke for new players. And like I said, I've told people maybe we don't have red smoke anymore. Maybe it's something else. It's a new season. We'll see. But we appreciate you tuning in. Have a great one, and we'll talk to you later.